MrBeast is not catching a break over the last couple of months as he keeps getting hit with new allegations, this time in the form of a lawsuit. And it seems like things are so bad that members of his crew are reportedly calling it the new Fire Festival. So what is going on? Well, on March 18th of this year, MrBeast and Amazon MGM Studios, they announced the Beast Games, a new reality competition series, which really drills in that dystopian meme of POV, it's the year 2024, and the only way you can obtain a house is by doing a MrBeast challenge. Because they also announced that it would be the largest prize for any reality competition, $5 million. Yeah, that's definitely I made it money. And speaking of made it money, there are reports of MrBeast securing a $100 million deal from Amazon for these Beast Games. So clearly a lot is on the line here. What could go wrong? Clearly a lot. Because first, we had some rumors come out on TikTok about mistreatment of the contestants, but it wasn't until Madison Malone Kircher published the article titled "Willing to Die for MrBeast and $5 Million" for the New York Times that the alleged problems going on behind the scenes became very public. Summarizing that article, she talks about contestants facing with difficult and potentially dangerous conditions with the alleged inadequate food and medical care, injuries from physical challenges, and a disorganized production staff. And then to make things worse, some contestants left on stretchers and others were hospitalized. While contestants signed waivers acknowledging the risks, many felt misled about the conditions and mistreated by staff. According to the article, the main concerns here were food scarcity, medical neglect, poor hygiene, and chaotic organization. So that really does not sound good at all. A spokesperson for MrBeast said the shoot was unfortunately complicated by the CrowdStrike incident, extreme weather, and other unexpected logistical and communication issues. The spokesperson also said that MrBeast had started a formal review and had taken steps to ensure that we learn from this experience. Representatives for Amazon MGM Studios declined to comment. And that's a fair response, but apparently that was the response to the problems with the intake process of the Beast Games. When the actual Beast Games started, the contestants allegedly had the same problems. And by this time, the CrowdStrike incident has mostly been resolved, and they were also given plenty of time to come up with workarounds if it wasn't resolved. So if this actually happened twice, that's just poor management. I am actually really interested in seeing how much MrBeast's team has to do with organizing this event versus MGM and Amazon. Is this kind of like the Beast Burger Ghost Kitchen thing where MrBeast essentially just slapped his name and likeliness on this MGM Amazon production? Or are MGM Amazon funding the MrBeast team to run this competition? I really want to know who's actually responsible here. But either way, this is branded after MrBeast, so it falls on his lap. Rosanna Pansino also made a bunch of videos where she was sharing the stories of alleged Beast Games contestants, but we never really had something concrete because everyone is hiding their names because of contracts and or, they don't want to be sued. But that was until this lawsuit was filed the other day. Now we have some more concrete allegations, still by anonymous contestants, but since it's now in a lawsuit, one can assume they're actual contestants. But as you can see here, it's a class action suit from 5 anonymous contestants against Mr. B 2024 LLC, One Off Base LLC, and Amazon Alternative LLC. Here you can see it's a class action for failure to pay minimum wages, liquidated damages for failure to pay minimum wage, failure to pay overtime, sexual harassment, failure to prevent harassment, negligent infliction of emotional distress, failure to provide uninterrupted meal breaks, failure to provide uninterrupted rest breaks, failure to pay wages promptly upon termination, failure to provide accurate and itemized wage statements, failure to indemnify for employee expenses and losses in discharging duties, unfair business practices, false advertising, and declaratory relief. Jury trial demanded. And what we're about to cover is just some key allegations outlined in this lawsuit, but the outcome could have some significant implications for the reality TV industry and how it classifies and treats its participants. Because the production that we're covering today isn't actually for YouTube, it's for Amazon's Prime Now streaming platform. And as I mentioned earlier, instead of reading through the whole lawsuit, I'm just gonna kind of go through the key points of this so you guys get the gist. So starting off here, we have misclassifications of contestants as independent contractors. So this lawsuit argues that despite being labeled as independent contractors, the contestants were actually employees under California law. They're arguing here that this distinction is crucial because the employees are entitled to legal protections and benefits that independent contractors are not. A quote from the lawsuit says, defendants wrongfully and willfully misclassified and on information and belief continue to wrongfully misclassify the contestants as independent contractors, although they should legally be classified as employees. This is interesting because you have contestants arguing that they are employees when they signed up to be contestants. I'm assuming their pay is dependent on how well they do in the contest, which they also signed up for. Now, this definitely doesn't mean they can be deprived of food and medicine, but it is an interesting argument that could change game shows forever. So I'm definitely interested in seeing on how the court rules on this, especially because they're saying that by Californian law, they're classified as employees, but this was filmed in Nevada. One or the other. Moving on here, you have the contestants were required to sign a contract that the lawsuit claims was unconscionable and included illegal and unenforceable terms designed to benefit the production companies while stripping contestants of rights. Quoting the lawsuit, it says defendants required the contestants to sign an unenforceable adhesion contestant agreement that included illegal provisions. The same unconscionable agreement barred class action lawsuits and lawsuits in California. Okay, so that's interesting. But moving on, you then have failure to pay minimum wage and overtime. So here the lawsuit alleges that the contestants worked long hours, including 24-hour shifts, without receiving minimum wage or overtime pay, as mandated by California law. So another quote from the lawsuit here is defendants knowingly failed and refused to pay plaintiffs and the proposed class minimum wages owed to them. Instead, defendants required plaintiffs and the proposed class to work 24-hour shifts for days without any wages. Yikes. That sounds bad, but you're also competing for $5 million. Clearly, these people didn't win, so they're trying to get compensated for something. But if the conditions were horrible, this makes sense as they would want to be compensated. I'm also interested in seeing what the conditions were there. Is this actually a Fyre Festival-like disaster? I really want footage so it's easy to have a non-biased take, because obviously the people suing the MrBeast team are gonna say it was bad. And the MrBeast team will likely say it was bad and you signed up for this. But moving on, we get more details on how things work. What's also interesting here is most of the people suing here are California residents. They did compete in Nevada, and they're suing them in California. So it's gonna be really interesting to see if Nevada law or California law is the one that matters here, because I would assume that California law is a whole lot stricter. But moving on, we get to see more details on how bad things really work. Denial of meal and rest breaks, which just sounds terrible. The lawsuit claims the production companies failed to provide contestants with legally required meal and rest breaks during their long workdays. In quote, defendants did not provide plaintiffs and the proposed class with a meal period on any workdays and failed to compensate plaintiffs and the proposed class for 1 hour of pay for each time a meal was not provided during a workday. This is so interesting and a massive reason why I would never want my business to be playing with people's lives like this. Because now on one side, it's a competition. So it's not like when you're doing an ultra marathon or Ironman that they're gonna pause the race to give everyone a break. You're free to take a break whenever you want, but you will probably lose if you do so. $5 million is on the line here. And I guess they need to eliminate people somehow. I guess the question is, what is the ethical way of doing so? Because if the conditions are too good, then the contest will just go on for way longer than planned, which will then cost way more. So it's like an extremely finicky line that you have to walk here. Again, it just makes me so happy that I am not in the competition hosting business, because most of these MrBeast videos, they aren't really skill-based challenges. They're just, how long can you do this super tedious thing? For example, placing your hand on a Lamborghini isn't really that hard, but keeping it there for 24 hours without moving it definitely is. So I guess that balances things out to make the competition fair. So like if you're a 4-foot woman, you have about the same amount of chances of winning as a 7-foot dude. That wouldn't be the case if you guys had to play basketball against each other. Okay, actually, I take that back. After doing more research since I filmed, I saw Miss Razan's first video where a contestant had this to say.
It was really bad. People were having seizures because they were not getting medication, even though we were promised we would. And it was 100% rigged. They presented it as though the game would be like Squid Games, basically a type of game show where all the games are an even playing field. That was not at all the case. All the games were about speed and strength, so only the young athletic males were at an advantage over the women, and elderly people were also casted. To make things worse, men started realizing that they could take out the women without being eliminated. Guys started tackling and hitting women. 2 girls were tackled and passed out on the field and were dragged off to continue filming. I saw people with broken bones, stitches, etc., and most were women.
Yeah, that's a complete disaster. I have no idea how this would ever be greenlit. But moving on with the lawsuit. So I'm really interested in seeing what the competition was, what the actual conditions there are. Knowing like the MrBeast challenges, they're probably standing around in a circle for a long time in the desert, which isn't really safe either. But that's just me speculating. I don't know what was going on because we don't have any footage. But moving on to the meat and potatoes of the lawsuit, we have unsafe and inhumane working conditions. So here, the lawsuit details numerous instances of alleged unsafe and inhumane working conditions, including contestants were allegedly deprived of sufficient food and water, leading to hospitalizations. That is absolutely terrible. Most people don't think hospitalization is a realistic risk when you're signing up for a reality game show. Here's the quote from the lawsuit where it says that contestants were taken to the hospital, including for dehydration. Scott Rubin of Vital Vegas reported that local Desert Springs Hospital had seen countless patients coming from the Beast Games due to a lack of food and water, and that the production had allegedly denied food to diabetics, denied water to contestants, and at least 2 individuals had seizures as a result. That is just extremely poor management and just like an absolute nightmare. Another quote saying that contestants were fed sporadically and sparsely. They were not given adequate access to hygienic products or medical care. So if the anonymous contestants were one of the ones who had seizures as a result and were sent to the hospital, because if that's true, I mean, that's impossible to defend. In that MrBeast handbook that was leaked, he had an interesting take on consultants that I feel like is contrary to what a lot of people think. As a lot of people think that the whole consultant industry is extremely bloated with large overpaid firms. Like the example of New York City not knowing to do with the trash problem they have, so they paid McKinsey a couple $1 million to say, hey, trash cans, they'll solve your issue. Who would have thought? I get that's an extreme example, but MrBeast said in his handbook to always use consultants. So one would think that the team would consult with professionals who ran events out in the desert before, like EDC and others who've ran very large game shows to prevent disasters like this. But hey, I'm looking forward for 2 things here: the response of the MrBeast team and any footage of what this event looked like. Because if it really looked like a fire festival situation, that's massive. And to make things worse, here's another clip from Roseanne's video of a statement from an alleged contestant.
We were given maybe 400 calories a meal and only fed every 12 hours. Food would run out and people would fight over, steal, and hoard food. Water was scarce and kept running out as well. I had to sit with a bloody pad for 2 days before I could get undergarments and my reusable pads because I'm allergic to regular pads. We were also sleep deprived, only allowed 3 to 4 hours. We all slept on the floor in the stadium in a $10 sleeping bag. I get that people saying it's a game show and it's not meant to be easy. I'm not saying it should be easy, but it was presented like Squid Games, where competitions were not biased and didn't exclusively cater to young athletic men. People who went signed up for Squid Games, not for American Ninja Warrior and Survivor. Why else would they cast elderly people on the show?
That is extremely dangerous for the women and so unnecessary. Like, we've seen them do porta potties and those tents for these kinds of things and other challenges. So why would they not do this now? This just doesn't make sense why they would ever want to do this now when the stakes are so high. Why are all your T's not crossed and I's dotted? Because this is a massive slip up. It's not even just a slip up. This is a disaster. How could they have not seen this coming? Again, if this is true, I am shocked this happened on not only a MrBeast set, but also an MGM Amazon production. But next, you have sexual harassment in a hostile work environment. So here, the lawsuit alleges that the female contestants experienced a hostile work environment and suffered sexual harassment. That is just completely unacceptable. But then you have the quote from that is, the female contestants particularly and collectively suffered as a result of the defendant's actions. The Beast Games work environment systematically fostered a culture of misogyny and sexism. Again, that is an absolute nightmare, but I really wonder specifically what happened. I'm assuming that'll come out later on. But we have 2 final main points left, one being misleading advertising and false statements. Here, the lawsuit claims the producer made false statements about the competition, including the number of contestants advertised as 1,000, but allegedly fewer in reality to entice biased participation. This misrepresentation impacted contestants' understanding of their odds of winning. Quote, it says defendants widely prompted right through the first day of the MrBeast competitions that there would be 1,000 people competing. So that's interesting, because wouldn't that make their odds higher of winning if there were fewer people who actually showed up? I don't know. I also saw in the interview by Graffiti, it wasn't fewer, but more. The contestant he interviewed there claimed there was supposed to be 1,000 contestants, but there were actually 2,000. But then finally, you have Nevada tax credit discrepancies. The lawsuit alleges that the production companies may have misrepresented labor costs to the Nevada Film Commission to secure tax credits. Quote, defendants knowingly misclassified the contestants as independent contractors in part to obtain a tax credit from the state of Nevada, which defendants, on information and belief, would not have received if they had disclosed the production actual labor costs, including the significant labor of the contestants in the budget that they presented to the Nevada Film Commission. Yeah, I'm not a CPA or tax attorney, so I wouldn't really be able to give any valuable input here. But the last thing I wanted to add was some horrible alleged damage control that's also from the first Roseanne video I missed before my original recording of this video. Again, it's alleged because I have no way of verifying these claims, as it's an anonymous person that's communicating via Roseanne.
They offered anyone who lost $1,000 to sign away their rights to join any kind of class action lawsuit of any kind. I didn't sign, so I didn't get the money. After this article came out and things started blowing up, they called everyone back and decided to offer an additional $1,000 per person to make up for any of the inconveniences. They knew it was bad, because they also offered to provide therapy through their insurance. And it wasn't Amazon Prime that called me, it was MrBeast's crew.
That's a Hail Mary when it comes to damage control. They've really dug themselves a hole with this one, and the lawsuit really does corroborate a lot of these claims, because letting dudes seriously injure women without doing anything is wild. That should be completely unacceptable on any production. And also, for the guys who did this, I don't think being on a game show will save you from an assault or battery charge, because everything's filmed. So I'm sure we're gonna get way more answers soon. I also feel like when it comes to the MrBeast games, we're only at the tip of the iceberg, because if all this happened, we might be in the ballpark of Fire Festival bad. If you want an actual lawyer to break all this down, you can check out Mad Catster's video here. Shout out to him for actually sending me these legal documents. And if he hasn't posted yet, I'll be linking his channel down in the description down below. I am super interested in seeing what the public response for the MrBeast team is to this, because if these allegations are true, this is just unacceptable. And this lawsuit can definitely have some serious consequences for how game shows and competitions are ran, not only on streaming websites, but also TV and potentially YouTube as well. But other than that, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.